The first live letter for patch 7.5, the final major patch of Final Fantasy XIV Dawntrail, is here, people. Want to find out what happened? Want to find out about Beastmaster? Well, I got you covered. Hello, everybody. It's your boy Jmulls, and Beastmaster is looking pretty good.
Of the ninth.
So we begin with this image of the two fiends, the Warrior of Light and Calyx. Not much to really talk about here, just a nice piece of art. And then we get the real key art for the patch, entitled Trail to the Heavens, and someone playing Trails in the Sky right now. I'm just saying, maybe it's a sign. But I find this key art to be kind of weird. Who remembers the start of the MSQ for patch 7.4? Remember how we said goodbye to Alphino and Alize as they left Tyrol? Yeah, so they're in the key art. Okay, sure, I guess. But hey, Justinian's here, so maybe he's done with his cowboy adventure. We also have Y'shtola, Cryle, Graha, basically the major scions, and the Warrior of Light. We have the key in the middle, and the planet above. This story is going to some weird places, and I'm kind of on board. Now, as is usually the case with the 0.5 MSQ, it is split up into two different parts. Part 1 coming with the patch on April 28th, and then Part 2 later in this year in early September. No, I'm not covering up the day itself, it's just early September. Yeah, we're gonna have 7.5 for a while, by the way. Voila, I present to you a schedule. As we kind of predicted, 2026 is going to be largely news and announcements, because we have the 3 major fan fests where they will be unveiling and revealing the next expansion for Final Fantasy XIV. We have the North American one on April 24th, the European one on July 25th, and then the one in Japan, the final one, on October 31st. And then sprinkled throughout the year will be the individual patches for patch 7.5. 7.5 will be right after the North American Fan Fest on April 28th. Then we'll have patch 7.51 in early June, patch 7.55 in late July, right after the European Fan Fest. And then in early September, we have patch 7.56, giving us the final bit of MSQ for Dawntrail. As we kind of suspected, the MSQ is going to be, at least going off the images they showed, starring the big key, the big doodad from Dawntrail that we'll be taking into the main narrative arc going forward. We have Shale helping us analyze it, and what I imagine is us going back to the moon for a bit. We have Urianger reuniting with the Loporrits. I imagine hijinks will ensue. My own personal theory is I also think the big trial fight for the patch is going to be taking place on the moon as well. We'll get to that though. We will have a meeting with Calyx. Remember, patch 7.4 showed us that Calyx is now in the squirrel outfit. I guess it's just one of those days. Maybe he watched Zootopia, who knows? But it is upon these darkened streets that we actually meet Calyx yet again. Whether or not we're actually going to see Halmarud here, who knows? I imagine we will. They probably don't want to spoil that one though. Or they're saving it for 8.0, who knows? Then in an interesting parallel to the patches leading to Endwalker, we have the Warrior of Light staring up at the moon. There's a lot of emphasis on the moon itself. Remember how Xenos looked at the moon at the end of the Shadowbringers patches leading us into not Dawntrail, leading us into Endwalker itself? Maybe I'm overthinking things, but it does kind of feel as if they're drawing a parallel here. Now, I do imagine we're going to get a little bit spoiled with FanFest, because remember the North American FanFest, where they're going to announce 8.0, and we'll get a bit of the cinematic, I imagine, is going to take place right before the launch of 7.5. So we'll have additional context going into 7.5 as to where this will all lead.
Of the ninth.
And then we're going to get the capstone quest for the Allied Societies of Dawntrail itself. I'm a little bit behind on this one, basically meaning I haven't even started these guys yet. We get a few different images for this one. This giant snow bunny, which I'm pretty sure is from the Yakoi quests. The Pelu Pelu are running away from this giant griffin. We're overlooking the Pelu Pelu town. And then we transition into Hildebrand, where we actually don't get that much. We have the Arglop from Final Fantasy IX. I have been a big fan of the Hildebrand quest this expansion. I thought that 7.4 ones were a little bit weak, but the overall story and the tone they're going for with the Dawntrail Hildebrand quest, right up my alley. I love it so much. Really excited to see how it all wraps up, and I really hope to God we get more in 8.0 and 8.x. The zombies make their return good. Hopefully we can have another dance number, and you know my boy Hildebrand had a flex on them. Bit of an odd one. We are getting a new custom delivery for this character called T-Soul Ja. So some lizard people turn-ins, Okay, sure. I'm a bit frightened by what people are going to do with the glamour system for this one, though. A little bit frightened. Then we have 2 more duty supports for the Dusk Vigil and for Shisui of the Violet Tides. Now, according to the English translation provided by the Final Fantasy XIV Reddit Discord, I'll leave a link to that in the description down below, during this part, Yoshi P said the following: "We did see the feedback that we might have reduced mechanical difficulty too much, but with duty support in mind, we had to." I don't want to hop in on duty support for too long. I mean, I fundamentally disagree with what he just said there, and I vehemently disagree with the notion of going back to these older dungeons and just like taking the texture and the uniqueness out of them in order to make them feel like all the other dungeons. It's one of my biggest complaints with the Final Fantasy XIV game design overall, the homogenization of dungeons. I really hope at some point we can move away from this. I am very pessimistic about that though, and this doesn't really inspire confidence for that. We're getting some new PvP updates, moving on, but we are getting a new crystalline conflict arena, the Archaea Harmonies, and honestly, it looks pretty good. I've always liked the library dungeons Final Fantasy XIV sprinkles throughout the experience every now and then, though I will say the main thing that's making me a little bit upset about this arena is not the fact that it's an arena, anything like that. Man, I just really want to explore all this stuff. Like, this entire location looks really dang cool, and I love the lighting. It just makes me think of all those like academy or library dungeons I've gone throughout my like tenure of playing Souls games, and it's giving me the itch. I'm telling you, I have to jump on these bookcases.
If it is knowledge of the ninth.
Now the dungeon for the patch comes out of actually nowhere. Look at this place. The Clitium. Let's go with that one. The Clitium looks absolutely insane. Now, my biggest complaint, revisiting from like a minute before in this video, this dungeon looks really dang cool, up my alley. Nia's one of my favorite series. This reminds me of the beginning of Replicant. It looks so dang good, and you know it's gonna be a straight hallway. We're gonna go from point A to B. We're not gonna explore any of these side streets, and it's going to kind of annoy me because this looks like a city I would love to actually explore. We're finally getting some snow in the main story. Big fan of that. Where this takes place, couldn't tell yet. Maybe below the moon, and like maybe it's a fake out and this isn't actually snow and it's like moon dust or people dust, who knows. All I know is this looks really dang cool. I'm a big fan of the Clitium. It just reminds me of my biggest issue with dungeons in Final Fantasy XIV. They all freaking look and play the same, besides the bosses. But man, this looks dang cool, I will say. And if this is representative of the overall tone and atmosphere of the story moving forward, especially in 7.5, I am a massive fan of that personally. I always love it when Final Fantasy XIV story gets a bit darker, a bit more haunting. This is exactly that. And in a lot of ways, looks like kind of what I wanted Golemald to be, but we only got to explore the ruins of Golemald. Not saying this is Golemald or anything, just give me a similar vibe to that. God, it looks cool, man. And not just because of what I imagine is snow. And then we get the final installment to the Alliance raid for Dawntrail, the Echoes of Vana'diel raids. We're getting part 3, Windust, the Third Walk. And as much as I would like to talk about this, I have not played Final Fantasy XI, and a lot of the big reveals like Shitoto over here only really make sense if you've played Final Fantasy XI. I guess she's a black mage, and I hear she's like the most powerful one. Cool, I'll be dodging Fire 4 for days, I imagine. But again, while I may not understand everything that's going on in regards to Final Fantasy XI, my god, the visuals are so good. Like this giant spire and this tree coiling around it looks so dang good, man. I hope we can get more like visuals like this in the actual main story for Final Fantasy XIV. I would love that personally. Though the Clitium being in the dungeon makes me think we're gonna go in a bit of a different aesthetic direction at least. This just reminds me of Alamigo personally. And then we have a very interesting one. The new trial NUO, Normal and Extreme. And as someone who plays World of Warcraft, I'm just gonna say this guy reminds me of a Janai with like the giant tentacle things. He kind of looks a little bit like Allegan to me. He's probably some kind of creature of the void if I would to imagine. He looks pretty cool though. Like there's part of his arm that's like separating from the rest of it as well. And while we can't actually get that much in the way of where this trial is actually located, it does kind of remind me of the moon. So like maybe we go back to the spot where we actually defeated Zodiac during the Endwalker story, and maybe this guy's waiting for us, or he gets summoned in, or maybe it's like near that location, or maybe it's at the heart of the Clidium. Looks pretty cool to me. Speaking of the Clidium, by the way, just circling back to this. Again, according to the Final Fantasy XIV Reddit Discord translation with Miuna and Aluna, link in the description down below, Yoshi P does say, you always had a dark impression of Golemald since A Realm Reborn, questioning whether people even live there. I feel like he's trying to tease that this location is Golemald. Maybe it even is, who knows? But like his final statement on this is, so it is related to the source question mark. Please look forward to it. Feels like it's going to be a bit of a bait and switch. And the reason I bring this up now, not only because I forgot, but for this trial, Yoshi P also comments this. But we were in Golemald for this dungeon. Why this? And how did some of you even figure this out so fast? There will be many shifts in the plot this time, so it might feel like we're moving fast at some points. Team asked me whether to make this question mark, but I said, nah, we should just show it. Shinryu was difficult on release as well, yes. Oh, goody. Fun fact, by the way, Shinryu's the Unreal trial for the patch, so it does seem as if this patch is going to have a lightning cadence to it.
Knowledge of the ninth.
And as I just said, Shinryu's the Unreal trial. Oh, goody. We kind of knew this one, but we are getting a new ultimate raid. They were very secretive. We're not entirely sure. This gives people the impression it might be near. I feel as if that would be them going outside the norm. I mean, they can do whatever they want, to be fair, but who knows? Maybe this is how Nier Automata was supposed to continue. And then we're getting the final step for the Phantom Weapon Relic series. They showed off two models, the Dancer fans and the Viper swords. I think they look fine. Yeah, just like they look fine to me. And then when it comes to content, this is one of the big boys for the patch. Remember, we're gonna have 7.5 for a while, so you're gonna want to hope the North Horn is rather meaty, because we're getting the second part to the Occult Crescent, North Horn. And it looks far more desolate than the South Horn actually looked. But it's this really cool nighttime visual as well, with all these like glowing objects. I think it looks rather nice. I'm always a fan when zones can look completely different, going from day to night. And alongside the North Horn, we're gonna be getting more Phantom jobs. Kind of hoping this one's Necromancer, because it looks pretty cool. And maximum knowledge level will be increased to level 40. The Fork Tower is returning, this time called Magic, and it's going to be operating a little bit differently. There are two difficulties now, normal and extreme. Both versions, though, go up to 48 players. To get into normal mode, it's very simple. You don't need any ciphers. You just go stand on the node, and if you don't get picked, you get priority for the next time. And it's just RNG whether or not you actually get in or not. But here's the other twist. For extreme, no ciphers are required either. The instances for the extreme are different to the normal mode. Extreme instances can be entered by alliances of 12 or more players in 3 or more parties, and when you enter the extreme instance, the Fork Tower will become immediately accessible. And with the North Horn, we're getting more gear. Collect the required items to enhance gear and upgrade your equipment to the highest level to obtain the mightiest gear on the Isle, if that's your thing. But here's the bit I really like. Should you possess upgraded gear from the South Horn, you may skip some of the steps required to enhance gear from the North Horn. Give some people like motivation to possibly go back into the South Horn until this comes online so they can get a head start for the North Horn. I like that.
Knowledge of the ninth.
Buckle up, people, because the break happened and now it's time for Beastmaster. We're using a one-handed axe in here. It is a melee DPS and it goes to level 50. Honestly, I wouldn't be too concerned about the level cap. It is a limited job, so it's not a mainline job, and think of it like a minigame all of its own. Now, how does it play? I got a couple of comparisons for you. Think Pokemon. You're going out into the world, you're finding various beasts. According to the bestiary they show later in this, it's about 50. Yeah, they say up to 50 types of beasts can be tamed. You weaken them in the wild and then you capture them. If you've played Octopath Traveler, remember the hunter? It's basically that. Here's a chicken. Here's a bigger chicken-ish. And they say here all beasts can be captured through solo play, and they can also walk beside you. I think this is probably in response to like the Blue Mage situation when that was first introduced, because if you wanted certain Blue Mage abilities, you realistically weren't going to do that solo. And I think a lot of the audience for stuff like Blue Mage or like Beastmaster, these limited jobs, is an engaging form of solo play. So here they just like reassure you, if you want to get any of the beasts, you can do that solo. And here's a shot at like the bestiary. So it's like a little notebook that gives you information about the beast, some of the abilities it can do, the size of them, small, medium, or large. Number 50, by the way, is Behemoth. Now, it's important to note a couple of things here. They claim this is a completely different combat system. The way the beasts operate is they have two different abilities and they have different auto attack elements. And there's also just overall different beast types themselves. You are not just sending your beasts in to do all the work, you are fighting right alongside them. And depending upon the monsters you have out with you, that's going to change what abilities you yourself bring to the table. So your beasts have abilities and you have abilities. This will all be pretty much explained through the job actual quests that are provided with Beastmaster. Remember how Blue Mage had its own quest as well? Very similar. Now, we don't actually get any in-game demonstrations for this live letter because this is part 1. The part 2 live letter we'll be getting in a while. That's where he will go in-game and show all this stuff off. This is just like a snippet, a tease, if you will. But don't worry, you're not just going to be running Crystal Tower because we're capped at level 50. Remember how the Blue Mage has the Masked Carnival? Well, Beastmaster has this thing called the Crucible of the Unbroken. First of all, great name. And they say it's a completely new type of duty, unlike anything else in Final Fantasy XIV so far. Woo! And it seems to be this branching path like choice you can go down. And they claim there will be a lot of rewards, we will see. And you can play to just clear, but we also are trying to implement some sort of rankings for those players that really want to go hard at it. Sounds cool. And this might excite you. Mr. Ozma was responsible for all of this. Job design from ground up and content. He put a lot of hours into this. It has a lot of volume. It kind of needs a lot of volume because remember the timeline from before? Like, we're going to have a giant lull this year where it's basically just 7.5 and 7.5x. This is going to have to do a lot of work. It sounds like it could be very compelling. I'm extremely excited for Beastmaster. I think it sounds really cool. Crucible of the Unbroken sounds interesting as well. If you just want to focus on the main line, you can do that. If you want to go off the beaten path, get some extra rewards for a bit of more challenge, you can do that as well. I like the sounds of this. Beastmaster sounds more up my alley compared to Blue Mage. I am a little bit peeved that this class fantasy is being relegated to a limited job instead of being fleshed out for an actual mainline job. Sailor V, I guess, just feels a little bit awkward for me personally because I main a hunter right now in World of Warcraft, and it's a bit crappy they can't get this class fantasy to work as an actual job, but we kind of expected that. I'm just hoping it's really fun by itself. And you may be asking, Jmulls, what about Blue Mage? You're not getting it in Dawntrail. They had to put all their resources into Beastmaster instead, and they have to like kick the can down the road when it comes to Blue Mage. Okay. Oh, by the way, Thavnir ocean fishing. Cool, dude.
If it is knowledge of the ninth.
We're also getting the final installment to Cosmic Exploration. We're going to Oxessia, which is a very green planet that has these ruins, what I assume are ruins, being overgrown as well. I think it looked really dang cool, especially this shot. It does make me wish Cosmic Exploration wasn't just crafting and gathering. I would have loved to have explored these locations, but what are you gonna do, I guess? There's a gold saucer update, but let's get into the real meat and potatoes of what people are gonna get excited about. Finally, housing updates. Increased placement limits for indoor and outdoor furnishings. The outdoor furnishings are pretty much doubled, and for indoor stuff, they still go up by quite a bit here. So for small, it goes from 200 to 300, medium 300 to 450, large from 400 to 600, private chambers 100 to 150, and apartments the same 100 to 150. We're getting new interior fixture designs. Here they are. They look pretty. And also, unironically, probably the most important update to the patch. Armoire? We'll go with that one. Storage options will be updated to include all job-specific gear, artifact gear. Thank you, God. That's easily like half of my entire glamour dresser. And also, all gear from dungeons introduced in 7.x patches, and they will eventually add earlier dungeons as well. It's just that's being rolled out gradually. And the ability to store dungeon gear as outfit glamour is also under consideration. Good change across the board. That's going to free up a lot of slots for me, so it's nice that we're actually getting this change, especially right before a new expansion. That's going to help. Okay, they wildly overcomplicated this in the live letter. They're updating the dye system. So you know how there's a whole lot of different dyes for different colors? We're consolidating that. There are 3 consolidated dyes. They don't have a name yet because Yoshi P didn't like the name they came up with internally, so they have to choose a different name. There's Type A, Type B, and Type C. They're consolidating a bunch of different dyes into individual dyes. So 85 dyes from the 2.x patches are now all being basically rendered obsolete, those colors are going into type A. You apply a type A dye to a piece of gear, you will then select the color you want from type A to be applied to that gear. So you no longer have to have like up to 85 different dyes in your inventory. It's all just going to be type A. Type B will be the 9 dyes from Ishgard Restoration. And then type C are the 11 dyes from Cosmic Exploration. Not all dyes are going to be consolidated. If it's from the online store, those are not being consolidated. And also, if it's one of these, they are not being consolidated either. So if you still want to make money from pure white dyes and jet black dyes, you can still do that. It's just the more basic dyes are being consolidated to 3 overarching types. You take a type A dye, you apply it to a piece of gear, you can then select from the subcategory of whatever dye you want from type A. Blue, green, yellow, fuchsia, whatever, all of those are considered type A. So the dyes that are in your possession that fall into those categories are not going to be functional, but you'll be able to turn them into a Calamity Salvager to get the corresponding consolidated dye. It sounds complicated, it really isn't. You just apply a dye to your gear, then you select the color you actually want. It is that simple. I saw comments about data center issues as well, and let me just say, those problems will be fixed, yes. Part 2 will be 1 week before FanFest, so April's gonna be very heavy for news. We'll have the Part 2 live letter a week before FanFest, then we'll have FanFest, and then on April 28th, we have 7.5 itself. April's gonna be busy, people. I saw a comment asking to allow entry to DRS with less than 24 players. I didn't understand what DRS is, but yes, minor updates like that I want to talk about in the upcoming PLL. That is it for content now announcements. And then the usual stuff they do at the end of these live letters.
If it is knowledge of the 9th.
And that will do it for part 1 of the live letters we'll be getting for patch 7.5. Overall, looks like a really interesting patch. I'm absolutely enthralled by where this story is going. Super excited for that. Beastmaster looks right up my alley and looks like a ton of fun. And I really hope it is, because we're not going to get much else for the rest of 2026. Hopefully 8.0 looks good when we get around to it. And here's where you come in. Leave a comment down below with what you're looking forward to the most for patch 7.5. Or what are you more concerned about than anything else? I'd love to hear your thoughts, hey opinions, and hey perspectives. And when you're down there, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Because you know we're going to be covering all of the news for Final Fantasy XIV, because we are about to get swarmed with news. But we just had the release of the variant dungeon, and I rather like it. But an angel problem rears its ugly head. Want to find out more? Check out this video right here for more. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.